Domain 2 is titled ESL Instruction and Assessment and represents 45% of the ESL 154 supplemental test. You'll notice that in this domain, the various components of Competencies 3, 4, 5, and 6 are grouped based on the interrelatedness of the 4 language domains and due to the manner in which instructional strategies integrate multiple learning modalities. Competency 7 and its related components specifically addresses assessment in ESL programs and make up the final segment of this domain. Unique components of Competency 3. The following Competency 3 components do not directly align with any other components in this domain. However, you may notice a general relationship to other Competency 3 components as they all involve teaching methods used to plan and implement effective, developmentally appropriate instruction. 3D states, the ESL teacher knows how to integrate technology tools and resources into the instructional process to facilitate and enhance student learning. Integrating technology tools and resources may come naturally to some teachers as there are many practical benefits for English learners. Technology integration facilitates communication and feedback between teachers and English learners at any level of proficiency. It can also encourage learner-centered classrooms, enriches learning experiences, and intrinsically motivates students. Consider integrating technology tools into daily routines, aligning technology resources with the needs of your English learners based on their proficiency level, supplementing or scaffolding instruction with online applications, and using technology to help students practice listening, speaking, reading, writing, and thinking. The ESL teacher applies effective classroom management and teaching strategies for a variety of ESL environments and situations. Best practices in effective classroom management typically include establishing and enforcing rules and procedures, maintaining effective teacher-student relationships, and creating a classroom environment where all students feel safe and welcome. For English learners, effective classroom management also takes into account their developing language needs. The following strategies will help all students, especially English learners, clearly understand rules, procedures, and expectations in the classroom. Display a classroom routine and rules that include visual supports so that students know what to expect and when. Alert students in advance when a classroom transition is about to occur and what that transition will be, such as transitioning from small groups to whole group. Practice and use callbacks between transitions to help students refocus attention, such as teachers saying, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, and students replying, 1, 2, eyes on you, and assign classroom roles and responsibilities to students. Which of the following strategies will best support English learners so that they refocus their attention in between a transition? A. Silent proximity and wait time. B. Practicing and using a callback. C. Assigning roles to the most focused students. D. Establishing norms around paying attention. The correct answer is B. Recall that practicing and using callbacks between transitions will help refocus students' attention, such as teachers saying, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me, and students replying, 1, 2, eyes on you. Unique components of Competency 4. The following Competency 4 components do not directly align with any other components in this domain. However, you may notice a general relationship to other Competency 4 components as they all involve promoting students' communicative language development in English. 4B states, the ESL teacher understands the role of the linguistic environment and conversational support in second language development and uses this knowledge to provide a rich, comprehensible language environment with supported opportunities for communication in English. What is a language-rich classroom environment? A language-rich classroom environment is one that provides students with multiple opportunities for purposeful conversations, time for processing and discussing content meaningfully, and built-in scaffolds to support oral and written thinking. Many of the learning strategies you have already learned about will help to create a language-rich, comprehensible environment for students. 4G states, the ESL teacher knows how to provide appropriate feedback in response to students developing English skills. Appropriate feedback. Feedback in the context of language development is the information students receive about their progress towards a language goal or learning objective. Appropriate feedback must be comprehensible, useful, and relevant. ESL teachers should interpret errors as stages in the learner's progression toward language proficiency. The focus must be on the student's ability to communicate meaning rather than on the errors made. To provide appropriate feedback, teachers can restate the student's intended message using correct grammar without overemphasizing the mistake. Timing the feedback so that students can relate it to their own statement is also important. Rubrics can serve as an appropriate feedback tool for teachers to guide English learners towards a particular objective. True or false? Always focus on correctness as well as communication and meaning of language being produced? False. The focus must be on students' ability to communicate meaning rather than on the errors made. Unique components of Competency 5. The following Competency 5 components do not directly align with any other components in this domain. However, you may notice a general relationship to other Competency 5 components as they all involve promoting students' literacy development in English. 5C states, the ESL teacher understands that English is an alphabetic language and applies effective strategies for developing English learners' phonological awareness and skills such as phonemic awareness, knowledge of common English phonograms, and sight word vocabularies. An alphabetic language is a language which uses symbols that reflect the pronunciation of words. English, Spanish, Greek, Russian, Thai, and Arabic are all examples of alphabetic languages. Japanese and Chinese are ideographic languages, which means they use graphic characters to represent meaning without indicating the phonemic sounds used to say it. Phonological awareness is the understanding that words are composed of distinct sounds, and is the foundation for learning to read any alphabetic language. Recall that English learners will be able to use background knowledge from their primary language and apply it to learning English, so students whose L1 is an alphabetic language will not have to relearn these concepts. Phonemic awareness is the ability to hear and manipulate sounds. Phonograms are letters or combinations of letters within a word that produce a sound in a word. K and f are examples of common phonograms in words. Sight words are words in English that should be memorized because decoding them is difficult. Words like come, does, or would are examples of sight words. Effective strategies to these three building blocks of literacy may include teaching phonemic awareness in the context of words, as in identifying beginning and ending sounds, hands-on activities such as matching gains with letter sounds or sight words to visual representations, flashcards, and implementing technology. 5D states that the ESL teacher knows factors that affect ESL students' reading comprehension, vocabulary, text structures, and cultural references, and applies effective strategies for facilitating ESL students' reading comprehension in English. Reading comprehension, or understanding and interpreting reading, involves knowledge of vocabulary, text structures, and cultural references within the text. Effective strategies for addressing vocabulary have previously been suggested. For example, pre-teaching targeted vocabulary can aid in text comprehension when the targeted words may be unfamiliar to English learners and difficult to figure out in context alone. Text structures and cultural references can also be intentionally pre-taught so the students have a clear understanding of the purpose behind the text and its cultural context. Structured conversations and discussions about the text can also help students better comprehend the text. Explain the three factors that affect ESL students' reading comprehension. Answers may vary, but if you noted the way in which vocabulary, text structures, and cultural references affect reading comprehension, you are on the right track. Competency 7 is the final competency of Domain 2. The components within Competency 7 have been organized to explain the relationship between different assessments within the ESL program, their varying purposes, and the processes through which they are implemented. Component 7E introduces the relationship among the state-mandated standards and instruction, as discussed in Competencies 3 to 6, and the assessments within the context of the ESL classroom. Components 7B and 7F establish the ongoing application of both formal and informal assessments, while 7A further elaborates on the basic concepts and usage of assessments in the English learner's classroom. State and federal assessment requirements are outlined in 7D and 7C. The ESL teacher understands how formal and informal assessment procedures and instruments used in ESL programs function and uses assessment results to plan and adapt instruction. E states, the ESL teacher understands relationships among state-mandated standards, instruction, and assessment in the ESL classroom. The relationship between the TExES Essential Knowledge and Skills, TExES, and the English Language Proficiency Standards, ELPS, is clearly outlined throughout this domain. Content Area Instruction establishes academic standards based on TExES, while the ELPS establish expectations for language development. Assessments in the ESL classroom help to ensure instructional effectiveness and identify individual student needs. They may be formal or informal, as defined in 7B, and used for planning and adjusting instruction, as further explained in 7A. The ESL teacher applies knowledge of formal and informal assessments used in the ESL classroom and knows their characteristics, uses, and limitations. Formal assessments are often referred to as standardized measures and provide reliable, quantifiable data. They can determine proficiency or mastery of the content and offer a way to compare student performance data. A formal assessment's validity is the extent to which a test measures what it claims to measure. Common validity issues include the cultural and linguistic barriers English learners may encounter when attempting an assessment in English while still developing language proficiency and learning about a culture potentially different from their own. Informal assessments are not data-driven, but content and performance-driven. These assessments are commonly referred to as alternative or authentic assessments. This method of gathering feedback is used as a guide to make instructional adjustments in content delivery for English learners. Effective teachers create lesson plans driven by data collected from frequent, informal, formative assessments designed to measure progress towards both content and language objectives. These assessments may include teacher observations, journal and portfolio entries, exit cards, skill inventories, pre-tests, homework assignments, student voice, opinion, or interest surveys. These opportunities must all be planned intentionally, and they are time-consuming to create and evaluate. Informal assessments cannot ensure validity and reliability of results, so they often require the teacher's informed judgment. 7F states, the ESL teacher knows how to use ongoing assessment to plan and adjust instruction that addresses individual student needs and enables ESL students to achieve learning goals. Ongoing assessments are tools to measure instructional effectiveness. They may be formal or informal, and examples include quizzes, end-of-chapter test, a report or essay, quick write tasks, student portfolio check, or one-on-one interviews. Data from ongoing assessments should be analyzed to identify where strategic instructional changes need to be made, identify students or groups of students that may need help mastering certain content, and reveal student strengths and areas for growth. 7A states, the ESL teacher knows basic concepts, issues, and practices related to test design, development, and interpretation, and uses this knowledge to select, adapt, and develop assessments for different purposes in the ESL program, such as diagnosis, program evaluation, and proficiency. When selecting assessments for English learners, it is important to determine the assessment goal and decide whether a formal or informal assessment is most appropriate. What is the assessment intended to measure? Language proficiency or content mastery? If an assessment is meant to measure content mastery, it may need to be adapted with appropriate language accommodations to match the English learner's proficiency level. Note that any language accommodations provided for content assessments should be familiar to the English learner as everyday tools they regularly use to access content. Teachers may also make edits to simplify language in questions or answer choices, shorten the length of the assessment, and test key or main ideas only. In developing assessments for English learners, teachers must ensure that the assessment tasks or questions match the content standards, use accessible language, provide appropriate directions with clarity, and avoid cultural bias in formulating questions. Explain how we as educators should select, adapt, and develop assessments. While answers may vary, if you included determining assessment goals, providing appropriate accommodations, and ensuring assessments are linguistically accessible to English learners, you are on the right track. Review the previous chart if you are not clear on how to select, adapt, or develop assessments for English learners. 7D states, the ESL teacher knows state-mandated limited English proficient LEP policies, including the role of the Language Proficiency Assessment Committee, LPAC, and procedures for implementing LPAC recommendations for LEP identification, placement, and exit. In Texas Education Code, Chapter 29, and in the Texas Student Data System, TSDS, or Public Education Information Management System, PIMS, the term Limited English Proficient, LEP, is still in use. You may have noticed this course refers to students as English learners, which aligns with Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 89, as updated in accordance with ESSA as of July of 2018. The classification of Limited English Proficient and its acronym LEP is synonymous with English Learner, or EL. The current Texas ESL Supplemental exam will likely still utilize the term of LEP. The role of the Language Proficiency Assessment Committee, or LPAC, is to ensure identification, placement, reclassification, and exit of English learners in ESL programs as required by Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 89. Students in bilingual programs will require a bilingual LPAC, whereas those in ESL programs require an ESL LPAC. Note that both a bilingual and ESL LPACs are composed of a campus administrator and the parent of a current English learner participating in a bilingual or ESL program. The difference is that a bilingual LPAC requires a certified bilingual educator, whereas an ESL LPAC requires a certified ESL teacher. The first responsibility of the LPAC, as previously mentioned, includes English learner identification. The process of identifying an English learner begins with the home language survey. The survey asks, what language is spoken in the child's home most of the time? And What language does the child speak most of the time? If the language spoken at home and by the student is English, the student is determined to be English proficient. If the language spoken at home and by the student is English and any other language, or if both the language spoken at home and by the student is a language or languages other than English, students are tested with a state-approved English language proficiency test for identification. Recent updates require the LPAC to identify English learners within 4 calendar weeks from the time of students' initial enrollment. Other updates and detailed information about identification assessments is available in the ESL Test Preparation Manual linked in the references as a companion to this course. Placement. Once identified, the LPAC will recommend for each English learner to be placed in either a bilingual or ESL program as required by the state, based on the enrollment of English learners within each district. Recall that program requirements stipulate that if a school district has an enrollment of 20 or more English learners in any language classification in the same grade level district-wide, the district is required to provide a bilingual education program. See program models as outlined in Domain 3, Competency 8. Note that parent approval is required for the English learners to be placed in either a bilingual or ESL program. If parents do not approve, they are asked to attend a parent conference to ensure they understand the benefits of the program. If parents deny approval of service, the English learner will not be placed in the bilingual or ESL program. True or false? Parent approval is required for an English learner's placement in either a bilingual or ESL program. The correct answer is true. 7C. 7C states, the ESL teacher knows standardized tests commonly used in ESL programs in TExES and knows how to interpret the results. The State of Texas Assessment of Academic Readiness STAR measures student achievement in meeting expectations established by the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills TExES curriculum standards in the grade levels and several content areas. Note that STAR Spanish is available for students in grades 3rd through 5th for whom a Spanish version of STAR most appropriately measures their academic progress. STAR Alternate 2 is available for students receiving special education services, including those who are ELs and meet requirements for an alternate assessment based on alternate achievement standards. The Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System, TELPAS, is a holistic assessment designed to measure an English learner's language proficiency in listening, speaking, reading, and writing domains, including English learners with parental denial of services. TELPAS is administered holistically for all 4 domains in K through 1st. An online assessment is used for reading, listening, and speaking in grades 2nd through 12th. The writing assessment is holistically rated using a collection of authentic student writing from classwork throughout daily instruction. In rating, trained teachers use proficiency level descriptors, PLDs, from the ALPS. TELPAS Alternate was recently developed for ELs with significant cognitive disabilities. For dual identified students, LPAC and our committees decide if and when a student qualifies for this assessment. The LPAC committee will meet before state critical assessments to make individual decisions for each EL. This includes designated supports, i.e. extended time, content and language supports, or oral administrations. Keep in mind that ELs with parental denials are to test as students in the regular general education program. LPAC is also responsible for the review and reclassification of English learners. At the end of the year, LPAC must analyze the academic and linguistic progress of each EL to determine if they are eligible for reclassification. This review includes all ELs PIMS identified students, including parental denials. For reclassification, note that students with designated supports on STAR Reading or English EOC cannot be reclassified. Detailed reclassification criteria is available in the ESL Test Preparation Manual linked in the references as a companion to this course. Notice the terms exiting and reclassification are not synonymous. Identification and reclassification are determined by the LPAC. Placement and exit are dependent upon parental approval based on LPAC recommendation. Dual identified students receiving services under special education must have reclassification decisions made with the LPAC and the ARC committees working together. Monitoring. Notice that both English learners who were parent denials and those in bilingual or ESL programs who meet reclassification criteria can be considered English proficient. When a child is reclassified, including those with parental denials, the LPAC is required to monitor them for 2 years thereafter. If a child fails a grade in core content, LPAC will meet to examine the data and determine options to best support the student. For monitor reclassified students in years 3 and 4, LPAC is only responsible for ensuring they are coded correctly in PIMS. Academic progress is no longer monitored by the LPAC. PIMS now includes a new former EL code for the evaluation of student progress beyond monitoring. However, the new code will most likely not be reflected on the ESL certification exam. True or false? The end-of-year EOY LPAC includes all ELs identified in PIMS, including those with parent denials. The correct answer is true. It is now time to exit this module so you can return to the course and move to the next module.